What are they saying? Jamaicans weigh in on the government's performance. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on air and online at onespotmedia.com. I'm Archibald Gordon.
And I'm Doreen Samuels. Also this evening, working on a plan. PNP responds to unfavorable poll findings.
Smoke worries why one school was ordered shut because of smoke coming from Riverton City.
It's coming. Stronger policies to be implemented to reduce consumption of sugary drinks in schools.
More wage woes. Teachers question government's latest move in ongoing salary negotiations row.
And in business news, government says the country is ahead of its target to generate renewable energy.
There's also sports, post-commentary and weather in the primetime package. But before the break, the feedback question.
What do you think are the top 3 best and worst performing government ministers?
Share comments online, facebook.com/Television Jamaica and tweet at Television Jam.
Stay with us. Primetime News returns after this break.
Welcome back to Primetime News.
Special welcome to folks on onespotmedia.com.
First up this evening, we turn the spotlight on the performance of Prime Minister Andrew Holness and the government.
Concerns are being raised about the performance, but for the most part, Jamaicans have a fairly positive view about the Prime Minister.
Yesterday, we reported that things are not looking good for the opposition People's National Party, PNP, and its president, Dr. Peter Phillips, which both were perceived in a negative light.
TVJ's Andrea Chisholm joins us live with the latest from the RGR Gleaner Group, Don Anderson polls. Andrea?
Thank you very much, Archibald and Doreen. Well, the results have been tallied. What are Jamaicans saying about the Prime Minister, who in their eyes is the best performing cabinet minister and who is the worst at their job? The Labour Party administration has been in government for 2 years, and Jamaicans are judging their performance. 38% of those interviewed gave a negative rating. 36% said the government's performance was average, while a total of 26% said it was positive.
I, Andrew Michael Holness.
Jamaicans also rated his performance as Prime Minister. 19% said Andrew Holness's performance was very poor, 15% poor, 33% thought it was average, 17% good, and 16% very good.
One of the things that I want to note from that is that Holness achieves a better rating than the party.
Moving on to the chosen ones. These were the enthusiastic faces at the swearing-in ceremony of cabinet ministers. The best performer by far in the eyes of Jamaicans, Dr. Christopher Tufton, the health minister, getting 36%.
A fully renovated Cornwall Regional will cost the country somewhere in the region of about just under 2 billion Jamaican dollars.
It's visibility, and even if there are problems at the Cornwall Regional, as there are, you get the impression that efforts are being made to deal with the situation. Bottom line. And then he has his social media page, and he's very visible, and he's very much out there with his health campaign. And I believe that these are the factors that have stood him in good stead in getting him this high rating.
The second best performer was Education Minister Roel Reid, and Finance Minister Audley Shaw was third best. Finishing the top 6, Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett, Sports and Culture Minister Olivia Babsy-Grange, and Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie. Now to the list of worst performing government ministers. Leading the pack, National Security Minister Robert Montague getting 30%.
In crime is a huge undertaking, the battle against crime, you know. And when you have a minister who they didn't think started with the best credentials in the first place, and the crime situation apparently getting out of hand, or getting worse certainly, when you talk in terms of the numbers of murders that have been committed so far this year, it is understandable that there's a perception amongst the general public that the Minister of National Security is not doing a good job.
Audley Shaw and Desmond McKenzie were also rated the second and third worst performing government ministers. But again, they were among the top 6 best performers.
But when the base numbers are small, this kind of situation is always likely to occur where you have a positive of 17% and you have a negative of 16% because they're all calculated out of a percentage of 100.
Completing the list of top 6 worst performers, Attorney General Marlene Malahoo Fort, Transport and Mining Minister Mike Henry, and Carl Samuda, the Minister of Industry, Commerce and Agriculture. So, what's the overall assessment? Pollster Don Anderson said the government should be concerned about the numbers speaking to their performance, especially when the figures on the economy are brought into the equation.
Is that there doesn't seem to be a kind of trickle-down effect which is benefiting the large numbers of persons in the population. In other words, the government is seen to be doing a number of things, but to a large extent, what we're picking up is that people are saying is a lot of marketing which is being done and not a lot of actual achievements which are being put down on record.
Andrea Chisholm.
Now, if an election is called soon, who would the majority of Jamaicans vote for? Find out the answer to that question on Monday when we conclude the findings of the RJR Gleaner Group Don Anderson poll. It was done between February 22 and 26. Over 1,070 persons 18 years and older responded. And as you should know by now, the margin of error is plus or minus 3%. Doreen, it's back to you.
Thank you, Andrea. And members of the People's National Party have been reacting to the findings of the latest RJR Gleaner Commission Don Anderson poll, which gave the opposition a 50% negative rating. Opposition Senator Damian Crawford says the low ranking during this period is nothing out of the ordinary. TVJ's Kalisha Williams reports.
The People's National Party have always offered an alternative to the Jamaican people, and we have always been preferred. This is not a PNP country, but the PNP is Jamaica's party, and I'm convinced of that.
But the recently commissioned RJR Gleaner Don Anderson poll was not so convincing for the PNP. In fact, more than 50% of persons interviewed gave a negative rating for the party since 2016. Moreover, only 6% of respondents found its leader, Dr. Peter Phillips, effective. When TVJ News sought feedback from the PNP, opposition Senator Damian Crawford said he did not find the poll findings surprising. Whilst he agreed that there's limited awareness on the party's performance since 2016, he argued that during the first 2 years of being in opposition, there's nothing much the PNP can do.
In the original 2 years, you only can critique. Coming to the third, the fourth year, then you're proposing. And that's a different line of business. So instead of a 5-minute interview, this would have been a 50-minute interview. Because not only am I saying that the JLP spent 140 million on cars, I will say what I would do if I was in power.
As for the party leader's performance,
is he disappointed as an individual? I would assume so. You want to be perceived in a very good light. Is he disappointed as the leader of the opposition, a politician? No, he accepts that, okay, we now must review and go into the streets, go into the fields, and take more progressive action.
And for his own 9% negative rating as shadow minister.
I continue to offer my opinion because I'm in politics to provide the country that I'm comfortable with. And those who are in agreement with the country that I'm comfortable with will support me. Those who are not in agreement with the country that I'm comfortable with would disagree. So the fact that 9% said that I'm the worst, I'll hope to change their mind, but not with a different opinion.
Going forward, Mr. Crawford explained that the PNP will be going back to the drawing board to come up with ways to better serve the people of Jamaica. Kalisha Williams, TVJ News.
And PNP Vice President Dr. Angela Brown-Burke says based on the results, she accepts that there is room for improvement. However, she is adamant that a recent retreat by the opposition focused on new approaches and policies that should be presented as a government in waiting. She insists that it will take time for the party to present these ideas to the public.
That the JLP has been in power for 2 years. For the first year and a half, possibly for the first 2 years, nobody really wanted to hear from the opposition. Whenever you tried to open your mouth, the argument was, listen, you just come out of power. You were there, what were you doing? We don't want to hear from you now. So as any responsible opposition would do, as any party just coming out of power would do, you would take some time for introspection.
She says those ideas and plans will be presented soon. However, Dr. Brown-Burke says in addition to planning, the People's National Party was also giving the government a chance to get it right.
What we have seen is that they are failing. The poll itself shows that people are not necessarily gung-ho and extremely pleased and impressed with where the country is going. No, they're not. And so really, as we normally say about a poll, it is a snapshot in time. And I am never one to rubbish a poll, whoever has done it, and whatever the results are. I always believe that it is a moment that you look at what the result says.
More reactions this evening to the appointment of Major General Anthony Anderson as the island's next police commissioner. The post became vacant after the resignation of George Coelho in January. TVJ's Vashon Brown has more.
Major General Anthony Anderson, the man that will take up one of the toughest jobs in the country come March 19. Security consultant and former Deputy Commissioner of Police Mark Shields is among those who feel General Anderson is a good choice.
The fact that he's worked with the PM as well and the Minister of National Security for 18 months holds him in good stead because A, they will have his confidence, and secondly, he will understand the direction in which this government wants to take policing.
General Anderson is not the first army man to be named the island's top cop in recent times. Colonel Trevor Macmillan served as police commissioner from 1993 to 1996, and Rear Admiral Hardley Lewin served as top cop from 2007 to 2009. Some say the JCF will resist outsiders. Mr. Shields, however, argues that it really depends on who the outsider is.
He has a huge amount of professional credibility that will impress many within the JCF. But of course, as with all outsiders, there will always be an element that will resist it and do not want change. And I think he's crafty enough and careful enough to overcome that. I think he will certainly overcome all of those concerns.
For Director of Safety and Security at the University of Technology, Robert Finzi-Smith, there are some priority areas for the new commissioner.
First and foremost, most importantly, esprit de corps. He has to win hearts and minds. The people that he's leading are in a demoralized sense right now, and being a military officer, he will understand the importance of that.
In the meantime, former Commissioner of Police and former Chief of Defence Staff Rear Admiral Hardley Lewin says political support is critical to the success of the new police chief.
The other thing that's very important, because you will never get every member of the force falling in line. But let me tell you, the vast majority will. And that is going to be heavily dependent on how General Anderson postures on assuming the post of Commissioner of Police.
Vashon Brown, TVJ News.
Our top story today, Jamaicans give mixed views on government's performance. Still to come, smoke worries why one school was ordered shut because of smoke coming from Riverton City. And in business news, government says the country is ahead of its target to generate renewable energy. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Continuing the news. The Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, says it has been informed by the Ministry of Finance that it intends to pay the first year of the 2017 to 2019 wage offer with March salaries, despite the group rejecting it 4 days ago. In a release today, the JTA said it has not agreed to any such payment plan. The JTA says it believes that this move is unprecedented in light of the fact that salary negotiations have not been concluded or a heads of agreement signed. It says if the Finance Ministry goes ahead with the payment, the JTA will view it as tantamount to union busting and a breach of collective bargaining rights. At a special conference last Saturday, the island's teachers voted to reject the government's wage offer.
This evening, the views of children from at least one Clarendon school about the ongoing violence in the parish. TVJ's Krista Campbell spoke with the children at a peace march through the alley community as part of Peace Day activities on Tuesday.
Peace begins in us, miss. So, miss, if we start to think of being peaceful, miss, in the future, miss, I think there'll be more peace than now, miss.
The view of one alley primary school student in Clarendon on the impact of recent incidents of crime and violence in the area. One of those recent incidents sent shockwaves through the country. 32-year-old Natoya Ricketts found dead in bushes clutching her 2-year-old daughter last month. Still an unsolved case with the police yet to make any arrests. Residents say the level of crime in the area is badly affecting them, none more so than the children.
They say that there's a man walking around ripping off people and he's hiding in the bushes, so they are very scared of him. At lunchtime when we're out on the playfield, we have to be very careful and we have to stay very near to the schoolyard.
It affects me very bad, miss, because sometimes, miss, I don't understand my homework, miss, like my mother is not home, miss, I can't walk up to my cousin's house, miss, because it's so lonely.
PTA President Karen Heron Thompson says businesses are also negatively impacted.
Persons are closing up early. I'm a business person myself, and I'm fearful of my life, so I close up early times to go home children are still afraid because at times they even witness certain actions, so they are afraid to come out.
And so this peace march organized by the police.
Through the community of Ali, they marched Tuesday morning. Students supported by their teachers, the police and other adults along streets which in recent times have been considered unsafe. On Peace Day 2018, students from the Ali Primary School called for an end to the crime in the area.
Assistant Superintendent in charge of the Community Safety and Security Branch of the Clarendon Police, Owen Brown, is convinced the message of peace has a greater impact coming from the youth.
They are better able to send the message so that parents can understand that their children need them. They need them to set the examples. They need them to create the environment where it's safe for them to grow up, safe from those who will want to sexually abuse them, verbally abuse them, or in any way abuse our children.
He says a police youth club at the school should also address the crime situation in Ali by targeting youngsters, particularly boys, who are being groomed by criminals at an early age.
We find that the students are really violent. They are impulsive. They don't really think, and they don't have the conflict resolution skills, so they just act whenever something happens. So I think the youth club would be a good start.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
The Riverton landfill was again the centre of attention this morning as toxic fumes covered sections of Spanish Town Road. This forced the suspension of classes at the Haile Selassie High School on Payne Avenue as a smoke nuisance from near the landfill became unbearable.
Thick plumes of smoke blanketed sections of Kingston coming from the direction of the infamous Riverton City landfill. The impact perhaps worst felt at the Haile Selassie High School. Principal at the institution, Lorenzo Ellis, says one teacher had to seek medical attention.
The situation actually worsened in the sense that a number of students and teachers were being visibly affected with complaints of headache, shortness of breath and tightness of the chest. In fact, one teacher had to be rushed to the doctor and she has been given a number of days leave.
He adds that following checks by the Public Health Department, school should resume tomorrow.
We called in the Kingston and St. Andrew Public Health Department to do their best to come in and do an air quality test. We advise the students that in any event, the matter should be subsiding within the course of the day and that regular school will continue tomorrow.
But when we journeyed to neighboring George Headley and Dehaney Park primary schools, things appeared normal.
Earlier, the principal and I, we were talking about the smoke, but we decided because we have had incidents where it was more terrible than it was this morning, so we decided to, keep school.
Investigations reveal that the source of the smoke was, in fact, debris being burned by residents living on the outskirts of the landfill. Sources told TVJ News that some residents have taken to burning tires and other debris in order to extract metal to sell in the scrap metal industry. Executive Director of the National Solid Waste Management Authority, Audley Gordon, says after visiting the dump Wednesday morning, he's happy that the dump is not the issue.
We have normal activities there as we speak. There is no fire. We didn't have any fire overnight and haven't had any fires for a while now, thank God. So we are hoping to maintain normalcy at the landfill, as none of us would want to have the experience of the past recurring in our lifetime, quite frankly.
As you can see, I'm surrounded by thick blankets of smoke. What we once thought was the Riverton landfill on fire, turns out the residents have lit the surrounding areas. Gillian Pearson reporting from the Riverton community for TVJ News.
Despite greater access to safe and nutritious food, hunger is on the rise in Latin America and the Caribbean. This, according to Prime Minister Andrew Holness, as he delivered the keynote address at the opening ceremony of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations Regional Conference in Latin America and the Caribbean in Montego Bay, St. James. TVJ's Lana Gay Franklin has been covering the conference.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says for the first time in 2 decades, hunger is on the rise in Latin America and the Caribbean. This, the Prime Minister says, is a troubling trend that stifles the achievement of sustainable growth and development in the region.
When all people at all times have the physical, economic, and social access to adequate, safe, and nutritious food to meet their food preferences and dietary needs for a healthy and active lifestyle. Yet, for the first time in 2 decades, hunger is on the rise in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Mr. Holness says the Caribbean is at a critical juncture that requires the time to plan, address the challenges, and identify solutions that will help secure food for generations to come. The Prime Minister suggested 3 areas of action that he says are critical to addressing hunger and malnutrition, rural development, climate resilience, and sustainable agriculture. According to the Prime Minister, energy security is food security.
It is well known that high energy costs is a barrier to increased growth and competitiveness in many of our sectors, including agriculture. We cannot speak to transforming and modernizing our agricultural sector without addressing how to alleviate high energy costs.
The second area of action suggested by Prime Minister Andrew Holness is the agricultural sector embracing technology. He says this is especially important in the face of climate change. Promoting partnerships to maximize food production is the third action plan. He says as Jamaica seeks to modernize food production to address hunger and malnutrition, promote rural development, and to be climate resilient, the power of partnerships is necessary. Lanigay Franklin, TVJ News.
As the debate continues over whether the government should impose a tax on sugary drinks, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says stronger policies and programs are to be implemented shortly to reduce their consumption in schools. He was speaking at a function where the key findings of the Obesity Prevention Public Opinion Survey was presented on Wednesday. The survey shows that most Jamaican parents are concerned about the effects of sugary drinks on their children's health. TVJ's Anthony Lugg reports.
The recent survey conducted by Hope Caribbean on obesity in Jamaica is alarming.
Jamaica is under threat from lifestyle practices.
According to the survey, obesity-related diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, and cancer are the top health concerns among Jamaicans. The survey also shows that nearly 80% of Jamaican parents are concerned about the effects of sugary drinks on their children. And while research suggests that putting a tax on sugary drinks would significantly reduce consumption, 64% of respondents support a tax on sugary drinks in general. However, 78% said they'd support the tax measure if the revenue would be spent on reducing obesity among children.
That's a very loud and profound statement, and to do nothing about that would be, frankly speaking, to ignore a voice of concern that's important.
The minister remains tight-lipped over whether the tax will be implemented, but
it's instructive for us as government because it means that as a government we should consider it. We should look at it. We should look at all the pros and cons. And certainly, from my part, it is something that I am prepared to push for and to argue in the interest of.
So as the ministry prepares to implement policies and programs, school administrators are being warned.
Start examining your menu, be creative in your catering approaches, and help the children to understand that sometimes a bottle of water, which they still will pay for, still has margins, is better than a sugary drink, probably the same manufacturer, so they're not losing any business. And that a apple or a banana or orange at break time is better than some sort of artificially flavored product that adds to the obesity challenge.
Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
Jamaica's Lorna Goodison has won a major literary prize. The nation's poet laureate is one of 8 recipients of the Wyndham Campbell Prize. Each writer will be recognized with a $165,000 US prize to support their writing. Awards will be conferred on September 12 to 14 at an international literary festival at Yale University, where the prizes are based. The prize was established in 2013 with a gift from the late Donald Wyndham in memory of his partner of 40 years, Sandy M. Campbell. The prizes are among the richest and most prestigious literary prizes. Lorna Goodison's poetry touches on the panoramic history of a woman's life, bearing witness to the female embodiment, the colonial legacy, mortality, and the sacred. She has received many honors, including the Musgrave Medal and the Commonwealth Writers' Prize, and is Professor Emerita at the University of Michigan.
In this evening's edition of the Health Report, TVJ Shimela Mitchell looks at venous leg ulcers and how persons can manage the disease.
Health Report is brought to you by a venous leg ulcer is a sore usually around your ankle that's very slow to heal, usually because of weak blood circulation in the limb. These ulcers can last anywhere from a few weeks to years.
What happens is that when you have venous hypertension, the blood that should be flowing upwards towards the heart, this actually pools in the legs. And because of the pooling of the blood, the patient will end up with ulceration, so the skin area will become thin and inflamed, and then it ulcerates, and then the patient will end up with a venous leg ulcer.
A venous ulcer often feels itchy or burns, and the area around it may be swollen. Other signs may include a rash or dry skin, brownish discoloration, and a foul-smelling fluid oozing from the sore.
So the persons at risk for your venous leg ulcers are persons who are obese, persons who have a sedentary lifestyle, so they sit for long periods and they will stand for long periods, persons who actually smoke, and also if you have a history of DVT, which is deep vein thrombosis, where there's a clot in the leg, that can also dispose you to getting this disease.
Sometimes an ulcer can lead to other problems, including serious skin and bone infections. In rare cases, it can give rise to skin cancer. Nurse Wade says the condition is preventable and treatable.
So you'll encourage persons to wear their compression stockings or 4-layer compression wraps, which should be applied by a professional, and to also treat the wound itself, because these wounds drain a lot, you want to manage the exudate as much as possible, and to also do the calf pump exercises.
With your health report, I'm Shimela Mitchell, wishing you good health. Health Report is brought to you by
A reminder that our current affairs program, All Angles, is at 8:30 this evening, and Dion Jackson Miller is here with a preview. Dion?
Thank you so much, Doreen. Polls and politics, politics and polls. That's our focus tonight on All Angles. That's coming up right after primetime news at 8:30. Right now, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Dion. Business Day and Newsroom Overseas are after the break.